So I'm going to read again from Antique Fairy Tales by, this is the illustrator. Anyways, so it's the 5 wise words of the Guru. So, once there lived a handsome young man named Ram Singh, who, though a favorite with everyone, was unhappy because he had a scold for his stepmother. All day long she went on talking until the youth was driven so distracted that he determined to go away somewhere and seek his fortune. No sooner had he decided to leave his home than he made his plans, and the very next morning he started off with a few clothes in a wallet and a little money in his pocket. But there was one person in the village to whom he wished to say goodbye, and that was a wise old guru or teacher who had taught him much. So he turned his face first of all toward his master's hut, and before the sun was well up, was knocking at his door. The old man received his pupil affectionately, but he was wise in reading faces, and saw that at once that the youth was in trouble. "My son," said he, "what is the matter?" "Nothing, father," replied the young man, "but I have determined to go into the world and seek my fortune." "Be advised," returned the Guru, "and remain in your father's house. It is better to have half a loaf at home than to seek a whole one in a distant country." But Ram Singh was in no mood to heed such advice, and very soon the old man ceased to press him. Let me get some tea really quick. "Well," said he at last, "if your mind is made up, I suppose you must have your way. But listen carefully, and remember 5 parting counsels, which I will give you, and if you keep these, no evil shall befall you. First, always obey without question the orders of him whose service you enter. Second, never speak harshly or unkindly to anyone. Third, never lie. Fourth, never try to appear the equal of those above you in station. And fifth, wherever you go, if you meet those who read or teach from the holy books, stay and listen, but for a few minutes, that you may be strengthened in the path of duty." Then Ram Singh started out upon his journey, promising to bear in mind the old man's words. After some days, he came to a great city. He had spent all the money which he had at starting, and therefore resolved to look for work, however humble it might be. Catching sight of a prosperous-looking merchant standing in front of a shop full of grain of all kinds, Ram Singh went up to him and asked whether he could give him anything to do. The merchant gazed at him so long that the young man began to lose heart, but at length he answered, "Yes, of course, there is a place waiting for you." "What do you mean?" asked Ram Singh. "Why," replied the other, "yesterday our Raja's chief wazir dismissed his body servant and is wanting another. Now you are just the sort of person that he needs, for you are young and tall and handsome. I advise you to apply there." Thanking the merchant for this advice, the young man set out at once for the wazir's house, and soon managed, thanks to his good looks and appearance, to be engaged as the great man's servant. One day, soon after this, the Raja of the place started on a journey, and the chief wazir accompanied him. With them was an army of servants and attendants, soldiers, muleteers, camel drivers, merchants with grain, and stores for man and beast, singers to make entertainment by the way, and musicians to accompany them, besides elephants, camels, horses, mules, ponies, donkeys, goats, and carts and wagons of every kind and description, so that it seemed more like a large town on march than anything else. Thus they arrived for several days, till they entered a country that was like a sea of sand, where the swirling dust floated in clouds, and men and beasts were half choked by it. Can I get some more tea? Towards the close of that day, they came to a village, and when the headman hurried out to salute the Raja and to pay him their respects, they began, with very long and serious faces, to explain that whilst they and all that they had were of course at the disposal of the Raja, the coming of so large a company had nevertheless put them into a dreadful difficulty, because they had never a well nor spring of water in their country, and they had no water to give drink to such an army of men and beasts. Great fear fell upon the hosts at that word of the headman, but the Raja merely told the Wazir that he must get water somehow, and that settled the matter so far as he was concerned. The Wazir went off in haste for all the oldest men in the place, and began to question them as to whether there were no wells nearby. They all looked helplessly at each other, and said nothing, but at length one old grey-beard replied, "Truly, Sir Wazir, there is within a mile or two of this village a well which some former king made hundreds of years ago. It is, they say, great and inexhaustible, covered in by heavy stonework, and with a flight of steps leading down to the water in the very bowels of the earth. But no man ever goes near it, because it is haunted by evil spirits, and it is known that whoso disappears down the well shall never be seen again." The Wazir stroked his beard and considered a moment. Then he turned to Ram Singh, who stood behind his chair. "There is a proverb," said he, "that no man can be trusted until he has been tried. Go you and get the Raja and his people water from this well." Then there flashed into Ram Singh's mind the first counsel of the old Guru: always obey without question the orders of him whose service you enter. So he replied at once that he was ready, and left to prepare for his adventure. 2 great brazen vessels he fastened to a mule, 2 lesser ones he bound upon his shoulders, and thus provided he set out, with the old villager for his guide. In a short time they came to a spot where some big trees towered above the barren country, whilst under their shadow lay the dome of an ancient building. This the guide pointed out as the well, but excused himself from going further, as he was an old man and tired. It was already nearly sunset, so that he must be returning home. So Ram Singh bade him farewell and went on alone with the mule. Let me get some more tea. So there's the illustration there. Arrived at the trees, Ram Singh tied up his beast, lifted the vessels from his shoulder, and having found the opening of the well, descended by a flight of steps which led down into the darkness. The steps were broad white slabs of alabaster, which gleamed in the shadows as he went lower and lower. All was very silent. Even the sound of his bare feet upon the pavement seemed to wake an echo in that lonely place. And when one of the vessels which he carried slipped and fell upon the steps, it clanged so loudly that he jumped at the noise. Still he went on, until at last he reached a wide pool of sweet water, and there he washed his jars with care before he filled them, and began to remount the steps with the lighter vessels, as the big ones were so heavy he could only take up one at a time. Suddenly something moved above him, and looking up he saw a great giant standing on the stairway. In one hand he held clasped to his heart a dreadful-looking mass of bones. In the other was a lamp, which cast long shadows about the walls, and made him seem even more terrible than he really was. "What think you, O mortal," said the giant, "of my fair and lovely wife?" as he held the light toward the bones in his arms and looked lovingly at them. Now I must tell you that this poor giant had a very beautiful wife, whom he had loved dearly, but when she died, her husband refused to believe in her death, and always carried her about, long after she had become nothing but bones. Ram Singh, of course, did not know this, but there came to his mind the second wise saying of the Guru, which forbade him to speak harshly or inconsiderately to others. So he replied, "Truly, sir, I am sure you could find nowhere such another." "Ah, what eyes you have!" cried the delighted giant. "You at least can see. I do not know how often I have slain those who insulted her by saying she was but dried bones. You are a fine young man, and I will help